Imagine paying $6,000 for a World Cup ticket and then watching that same ticket drop to 50 bucks. Not a sale, not a discount, a complete, total, embarrassing collapse. That is exactly what is happening right now, and the people who bought early are absolutely furious. We are talking about one of the biggest sporting events on the planet, and the resale market is in free fall. Prices are crashing so hard, so fast, that fans who spent their life savings on tickets are now watching their investment evaporate in real time. This is not a rumor, this is not exaggerated. This is the World Cup 2026 ticket market right now, and trust me, you need to hear this full story before you make any decisions about tickets, travel, or anything else related to this tournament. Stay with me, because what I am about to tell you gets wilder with every single minute. And real quick before we dive in, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a like on this video. We cover breaking sports news, big money stories, and everything happening behind the scenes in the world of football, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Alright, let us get into it. So let us start from the very beginning, because to understand how prices crashed this hard, you have to understand how they got so high in the first place. When FIFA announced that the 2026 World Cup would be hosted across the United States, Canada, and Mexico, the excitement was on another level. This was not just any World Cup. This was the first ever 48-team World Cup, meaning more matches, more nations, more drama, and more reasons to buy tickets. Fans from all over the world started planning years in advance. Travel packages were being booked, hotels were selling out, and tickets on the secondary market were being listed at prices that would make your jaw drop. We are talking group stage tickets going for anywhere between $1,000 and $3,000, knockout round tickets climbing to $5,000 and $6,000. Final tickets? Some listings were hitting $10,000, $15,000, even $20,000. The demand seemed absolutely insane, and resellers, scalpers, and secondary market platforms were rubbing their hands together, thinking they had hit the jackpot. This was supposed to be the most profitable World Cup ticket market in history. That was the narrative. That was the expectation. And then reality showed up and flipped the entire table. Here is where things start to get really interesting and honestly a little painful to watch if you are one of the people who bought in early. A few months ago, prices were sky high and the secondary market was buzzing with activity. Listings were going up faster than they were selling, but nobody was panicking yet. Sellers figured demand would catch up. They figured as the tournament got closer, the urgency would kick in and buyers would start paying those ridiculous prices. What they did not account for was the sheer volume of tickets flooding the market at the same time. FIFA made millions of tickets available across multiple sales phases, and not all of those tickets were being snapped up by actual fans who were going to the games. A huge percentage were being grabbed by speculators and resellers who had no intention of ever walking through those stadium gates. Their entire plan was to flip the tickets for a profit. Buy low, sell high, pocket the difference. It is the oldest trick in the book. Except this time, everyone had the same idea at the same time, and the market became absolutely saturated. When supply overwhelms demand in a ticket market, the result is not gradual. It is not slow and steady. It is a cliff. Prices do not drift downward. They fall off the edge. And that is exactly what we started seeing. First, it was the group stage tickets. Matches involving smaller nations, games that did not have the same marquee appeal, started showing up on resale platforms at significant discounts. A ticket that was listed at $800 in January dropped to $400, then $200, then less. Sellers started panicking and lowering their prices to undercut each other, which pushed prices even lower, which triggered more panic selling, which pushed prices lower still. It became a race to the bottom, and in some cases, that bottom turned out to be $50. $50 for a World Cup ticket. Let that sink in for a second. Now you might be thinking, okay, $50 is for the cheap games, the less exciting group stage matches, maybe games in smaller venues or with less popular teams. And yes, there is some truth to that. The most sought-after matches, the big rivalries, the knockout rounds, and obviously the final, those tickets are still expensive. But here is what is really alarming about this situation. The price drops are not isolated, they are spreading. Matches that should have strong demand are also seeing their resale prices fall significantly. Games involving top team, games in major American cities, games that should have been automatic sellouts on the secondary market are sitting unsold at prices that would have seemed impossible just a few months ago. That is when people started paying attention. That is when the alarm bells started ringing. Because if even the good tickets are struggling to sell at inflated prices, something bigger is going on here. And that something bigger has a few different layers to it, and each layer is more complicated than the last. The first layer is the economic reality facing a lot of football fans around the world. We are in a period where inflation has eaten into household budgets, where travel costs are through the roof, and where spending thousands of dollars on a sporting event, even the World Cup, is simply not realistic for a large portion of the global fan base. The people who are most passionate about football, fans from South America, from Africa, from Southeast Asia, from Eastern Europe, these are not necessarily the people with $6,000 to spend on a single ticket plus airfare, plus hotels, plus food and everything else. The dream of attending the World Cup has always been expensive, but the 2026 edition took it to a level that priced out millions of genuine fans, and those fans, rather than stretching their budgets to the breaking point, simply said no. The second layer is something that a lot of people in the sports business world did not see coming, or maybe did not want to admit. The American market for football, or soccer as they call it in the US, is not the same as the European or South American market. Yes, interest in soccer has been growing in the United States. Yes, MLS has been expanding. Yes, more Americans are following the Premier League and other top leagues than ever before. But there is a massive difference between watching games on television and being willing to pay premium prices to attend in person. The American sports fan is used to attending NFL games, NBA games, baseball games, all of which have well-established local fan bases, accessible ticket prices at various levels, and deep cultural connections. Asking that same American sports fan to pay thousands of dollars for a soccer game involving teams they may not have strong connections to is a different proposition entirely. And the numbers are showing that for a lot of Americans, the answer has been a polite pass. The third layer, and this one is really important, is the backlash against FIFA itself. FIFA is not the most beloved organization in the world of sports, and that is putting it very gently. There is a long history of controversy, corruption allegations, questionable decisions, and a general feeling among many fans that FIFA does not actually care about the people who love football. It cares about television rights money, corporate sponsorships, and the interests of the powerful few at the top of the food chain. That sentiment has been building for years, and the 2026 World Cup has become a focal point for a lot of that frustration. Fans who feel that FIFA has priced them out of attending the tournament are not just disappointed, they are angry. There are active calls on social media, in fan communities, and in football supporter groups for people to boycott the secondary market entirely and either buy directly from FIFA at face value or simply watch at home. And those calls are having an effect. When you combine genuine economic hardship with ideological resistance to paying scalper prices, the demand for overpriced resale tickets takes a serious hit. And now let us talk about the people who are really caught in the middle of all of this. The early buyers, the ones who got excited when FIFA opened ticket sales, who spent hours navigating the official website, who paid face value for tickets months or even years ago with the intention of reselling them at a profit. These are not all big-time professional scalpers. A lot of them are regular people who thought they were making a smart investment, a fan who bought 4 tickets to multiple games thinking he could resell 2 of them to cover his costs and attend the rest essentially for free. That plan worked beautifully during the Qatar 2022 World Cup. It worked during Russia 2018. The logic was sound based on historical pattern. But this time the market moved in the opposite direction, and now those people are sitting on tickets they either cannot sell or can only sell at a significant loss. The math in some cases is genuinely brutal. Someone who bought a ticket for an early round match at face value, say $200 or $300, and then listed it on a resale platform for $1,000 might now be struggling to get even face value back. If they drop the price to $150 to make a sale, they are losing money after platform fees. If they hold and hope the market recovers, they risk prices dropping even further. There is no good option. You either take the loss now or gamble that things will improve. And with the tournament getting closer every day, the window for prices to recover is shrinking. This situation is also raising serious questions about the entire model of ticket resale for major sporting events. Should resale be allowed at all? Should FIFA implement stricter anti-scalping measures? Should tickets be non-transferable and tied to the original buyer's identity? These conversations have been happening for years in the football world and in the wider sports industry, but the 2026 World Cup situation is bringing them front and center like never before. Some people argue that a free market should be allowed to operate and that prices finding their natural level, even if that means crashing from $6,000 to $50, is simply the market working as it should. Others argue that the existence of a secondary market in the first place is a symptom of a broken system that allows corporate entities and speculators to profit from the passion of ordinary fans while those fans get squeezed out or ripped off. FIFA has been notably quiet about the price collapse, which itself is telling. When resale prices were sky high, there were no complaints from the organization. High resale prices made FIFA look good. They suggested massive demand for a product FIFA was selling. Now that prices are in freefall and the narrative has shifted to backlash and collapse, FIFA has very little to say publicly. That silence is being noticed and criticized. Fans and commentators are pointing out that FIFA was happy to benefit from the perception of overwhelming demand created by the inflated resale market, but now that the bubble has burst, there is no acknowledgement, no accountability, and no plan to address the situation. There is also the question of what this means for the actual atmosphere at the games. One of the things that makes the World Cup special is the mixture of fans from different nations all packed into the same stadium, waving flags, singing songs, creating an electric atmosphere that you simply cannot replicate in any other sporting context. If tickets are not reaching genuine fans, if stadiums are filled with people who bought tickets as investments and are now trying to recoup their losses, or worse, if sections of stadiums are sitting empty because nobody bought the tickets at all, then the experience of the tournament suffers. FIFA has always marketed the World Cup as a celebration of global football culture. A ticket market in crisis threatens that vision directly. There is also the host city perspective to consider. Cities across the United States, Canada, and Mexico invested enormous resources in preparation for this tournament. Infrastructure upgrades, stadium renovations, security planning, local business preparation for the expected influx of tourists. All of that investment was predicated on the assumption that hundreds of thousands of international visitors would be descending on these cities with money to spend. If the ticket market collapse signals softer overall demand for the tournament, those cities could end up with significantly less economic activity than they planned for. That is not just disappointing for local governments, it is a financial problem, and it is a problem that nobody was seriously discussing even 6 months ago. Let us also take a moment to talk about what is happening on social media, because the online reaction to this ticket price collapse has been absolutely fascinating to watch. On one hand, you have the people celebrating. Fans who never could have afforded $6,000 tickets are suddenly seeing the possibility of attending their first ever World Cup live. A $50 ticket is not nothing. You still have to get to America, find a place to stay, and cover all your other expenses. But the psychological barrier of the ticket price itself being accessible is significant. There are stories circulating of fans from Brazil, from Argentina, from Nigeria, from countries where football is a religion and $6,000 tickets were an impossible dream, suddenly reconsidering whether they can make this work. That is genuinely exciting and genuinely good for the sport. On the other hand, you have the outrage from people who bought at peak prices and are now facing massive losses. You have the commentary from football journalists and analysts who warned that the market was overheated and are now saying they told you so. You have the FIFA criticism crowd who see this as yet another example of the organization mismanaging the commercial side of the tournament at the expense of fans. You have the economic commentators who are using this as a case study in speculative market bubbles and how they burst. All of these conversations are happening simultaneously, and the result is a level of attention and controversy around the 2026 World Cup ticket situation that is frankly unprecedented in the history of the tournament. And here is something that I think deserves its own moment, because it gets overlooked in the conversation about prices and markets and economics. This situation reveals something important about what the World Cup actually is at its core and what it has become under FIFA's management. The World Cup started as a tournament for the best national teams in the world to compete for football supremacy. It was about the sport. It was about national pride. It was about the joy of the game. Over decades, it has been transformed into the most commercially valuable sporting property on earth, a machine for generating television rights money, sponsorship dollars, and merchandise revenue. The tickets are almost secondary to FIFA's revenue model, but they are front and center to the fan experience. And when the commercial machine overreaches, when prices get set or allowed to rise to levels that are completely disconnected from what real fans can afford, the backlash that follows is not just financial, it is emotional. Fans feel betrayed. They feel like the thing they love has been taken away from them and turned into a product designed for wealthy investors rather than passionate supporters. That emotional dimension is what makes this story bigger than just a ticket market correction. People do not get this upset about stock prices falling. People do not organize boycotts when housing prices drop. But when the World Cup becomes inaccessible, when the price of attending the greatest show in football reaches levels that only the ultra-wealthy or professional speculators can afford, people get angry in a deeply personal way. Because football is not just a business to most of the people who love it. It is an identity. It is a community. It is something passed down from parents to children, something that connects people across language barriers and cultural differences. When that thing gets monetized to the point of exclusion, the pushback is fierce and it is real. Now, as we get closer to the start of the tournament, there are a few possible ways this plays out. The optimistic scenario is that prices stabilize and even recover somewhat as the tournament approaches, and genuine fans who have been waiting for prices to drop rush into the market. This has happened before in other events where early price spikes were followed by corrections and then a moderate recovery as game day got closer. The fear of missing out factor kicks in. People who said they would not pay overpriced rates change their minds, and the market finds a new equilibrium that is lower than the peak but higher than the panic selling floor. That would be a relatively clean resolution, and it would probably be accompanied by FIFA and the host countries talking about what a massive success the tournament was. The pessimistic scenario is that prices stay low or continue to fall, that actual attendance at some games is lower than expected, that the economic impact on host cities falls short of projections, and that the narrative around the tournament becomes one of overreach and mismanagement rather than celebration. In that scenario, the 2026 World Cup becomes a cautionary tale, a case study in what happens when the commercial ambition of a sporting governing body runs ahead of the genuine appetite of the fan base. FIFA would still make enormous amounts of money from television rights and sponsorships. The tournament would still happen and the football would still be thrilling. But the reputation damage would be real and lasting. The most likely scenario is somewhere between those two extremes. Prices will partially recover for the most desirable matches as the tournament gets underway and FOMO kicks in. Prices for less attractive games will stay low, and in some cases the ticket price collapse will actually be a blessing for genuine fans who take advantage. Stadiums will be mostly full, but perhaps not with the kind of diverse global audience that defines the World Cup at its best. The economic impact will be positive, but perhaps not as spectacular as originally projected. And the conversation about FIFA's management of the ticket market will continue long after the trophy has been lifted. What I want to leave you with is this. The story of World Cup 2026 ticket prices is not just a financial story. It is a story about who gets to be part of the biggest sporting event in the world. It is a story about the tension between the commercial interests of governing bodies and the genuine passion of fans. It is a story about what happens when a speculative market meets a reality check, and most importantly, it is a story that is still unfolding. We do not know yet how it ends. We do not know whether the price collapse will ultimately be seen as a disaster or an opportunity. What we do know is that millions of football fans around the world are watching closely, making decisions, sharing opinions, and feeling things deeply about this tournament and about their ability to be part of it. If you made it this far in the video, I genuinely want to know what you think. Drop a comment right now and tell me, would you buy a $50 World Cup ticket if you could make it work? Or do you think there is something wrong with the whole system that we should be more upset about? Your opinion matters, and I read every single comment on this channel. And if you found this video useful or interesting, please share it with someone who loves football or who is thinking about going to the World Cup, because this is information that could genuinely save them money or help them make a smarter decision. Sharing takes 2 seconds, and it means the world for getting this kind of content to people who need it. The World Cup is supposed to be for everyone. Whether the 2026 edition lives up to that ideal is a question we are all going to find out the answer to together. Stay tuned, stay informed, and we will see you in the next one.